Ah, the fall season. Season of pumpkin spice lattes, cool breezes, and every goth girl's favorite time of year. But it's also the season for Halloween, the Day of the Dead, Thanksgiving, and scary movies. It's also the time of year for me to transform into my true form. Hello, my name is Jacob, and I'm a Norse Pagan, and this is my favorite time of year. All joking aside, what we're actually going to be talking about today is the autumn season, is this time of year, because it's not just my favorite season, it's not just every goth girl in high school's favorite season. This is typically most pagans' favorite time of year, but not just a favorite, it's also the time of year I think we feel the most connected to the gods. I know personally, the moment the weather starts cooling down, at least here in Kentucky, is when I start feeling that breath of the north, so to speak, and it's the time of year I really do feel the most connected to this faith. It also seems that this time of year is most people's favorite holidays all wrapped up in here. Of course, you have Halloween, you have the Day of the Dead, you have Oktoberfest, you have Thanksgiving, all these holidays that still have some form of community and pagan elements steeped within themselves. Naturally, I am a Norse pagan, so I try to focus on the information that's going to benefit people that follow the Norse pagan or heathen path. However, I will be pulling information in from various religious groups, all to better inform your personal practice and help give you a better image of how to honor and venerate this time of year to the fullest. As with many of my videos, I really want to start with the historical information and what we know from the pre-Christian Scandinavian past. Now, a few notes before we dive into this. One, a distinction about a fall month doesn't really seem to exist historically in Scandinavia. It really just transitioned from summer into winter. So we really need to look at the holidays that existed between those two periods. Additionally, we have to remember that, everywhere around the world, the seasons are going to be slightly different, including in the Viking Age, where I believe it was actually a warmer period in Scandinavia. And so those periods of transition are always going to change. And therefore the date of these events is also going to change based on location, region, and even in your own personal practice, it's going to mostly fall on when your transitional periods are between the seasons. So there really seems to be three hints we get onto what might have happened this time of year. So the main one that came up is a Hausterblot or a Hauster, which is kind of that transitional period. And we can infer that this was a period of bringing things out, bringing out the fresh brew, preparing for winter, and it was kind of a winter night celebration. Also mentioned in this book is the very fact that the majority of cultures in the world have a transitional month. This is one of the big holidays because this is when you're really celebrating the fruits of your labor over the summer. So we can infer that, a harvest festival in general was something done by the Scandinavian people, just because it's something that is done nearly by every culture on the planet. Another thing we can pull from history is an Alfablot or an Alfjordblot, and this is a offering to the elves, which comes from several historical stories, and it's not something I actually mentioned in my elf video, which I completely was just an oversight. But yes, this is actually an offering to the elves. But the thing that was interesting, why it didn't trigger my radar as far as the elves themselves when I was talking about them, is because it was really an ancestor ritual at the same time, because the elves and the ancestors were kind of blurred together here, and so you would leave offerings for them outside. And you would leave, just fruits, beers, and things that we generally leave today. So it's really exciting to see offerings very similar to how we give now, as far as the leaving of fruits and foods and drinks and things like that. So that's not really a lot to go off of historically, but we do get two major things from this. We get the ancestor veneration aspect, and we get the harvest festival aspect, which is something we're going to see continue on throughout this video. Now, something you don't hear me talk about often on this channel is Wicca or witchcraft, just simply because I don't really come from a Wiccan background, unlike many people in the Norse pagan community, and I don't practice any form of witchcraft, or at least none that I would call witchcraft. And so it's not something I typically bring into this channel because I feel like I don't have enough informed information, and it's not really something that pertains to my path. However, many people within the Wisdom of Odin community come from a Wiccan background, and many people practice witchcraft, and I have no problem with it. Now, for the case of this video, I do want to talk about the Wiccan holidays for this time of of year because it's something I notice many Norse pagans and heathens bring into their own practice to celebrate this time of year to the fullest. Now, from my research, I've been able to tell there are 3 major Wiccan holidays and traditions around this time of year, or sabbats. Again, I apologize, I'm not going to pronounce anything correctly, especially when it comes to the names of these holidays. So first you have Lammas, which is a Wiccan harvest festival, and there's an emphasis on baked goods. There's so many different cultures and traditions and holidays that celebrate food, baked goods, I mean, even like Thanksgiving. The next holiday that comes up within the Wiccan tradition is Mabon. This seems to start on the equinox itself, and it also seems to run several days after that. Of course, this has Wiccan origins, but it does seem to be the most common one to be adopted by various pagan groups across the world. The next one is the one I have the biggest trouble saying and pronouncing, and that is Samhain, even though it's spelled Samhain, which I'm assuming this is because it comes from a Celtic tradition, and most Celtic things I can't pronounce very well at all. This one is really interesting to me because this is something that I personally experience this time of year, and that is the thinning of the veil between our world and the world of the dead. Again, something that we see in cultures all over the planet. And so Samhain seems to be that time of year to venerate that, and it's held later, closer towards November and the end of October, and around Halloween or the Day of the Dead. And again, this seems to be the time of year that you communicate with the ancestors. You have an ancestor ritual, which again we saw historically is the alpha bloat. The other thing that I found interesting is the balance and the opposite to Beltane in the spring, and then you have Samhain in the fall that balances the 2 energies there, which I found quite interesting. Again, I apologize for my lack of knowledge with the Wiccan stuff. I didn't do too much of a deep dive. I really just wanted to get a basic list, because what I really wanted to pull out of this is the main focuses. We have an emphasis on baked goods with Lammas, then you have the equinox celebration with Mabon and the focus on autumn, the transition of seasons, and then you have the ancestor veneration with Samhain. And so this is really what I wanted to look at. And of course, if we take this list and compare it to the historical knowledge of the heathen world and look at it, we can see there's so many similarities. Even though majority of these holidays were made in the 1950s and 1970s within the Wiccan tradition, we look compared to the historical information from the pre-Christian Scandinavian past, and it is easy to see the combination there. The emphasis on ancestor veneration, the emphasis on the transition of seasons. So taking this information, I do want to kind of do a final comparison with the modern, more common practices of this time of year of cultures all around the world. Hello, it's me, Jacob, being a basic bitch in my beanie, flannel, and drinking my Starbucks. And no, it's not a pumpkin spice latte. But if you want to support me and what I'm doing here at the Wisdom of Odin, I would greatly appreciate it if you would go down to Patreon and think about donating there. I have a load of benefits there as well, including our community Discord, early access videos, and community live streams. So please go down below, think about supporting this channel. It really is the only way I'm able to do this full time. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the video. Now, of course, I'm not going to get every single global holiday that exists during this time of year, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, and at least, you know, as far as like a winter transitional season, I'm not gonna get them all. There's so many. Every culture, every group, every tribe, every town has different traditions. I know where I came from in my hometown, we had an apple fest. You know, it seems like this is so common. We also see a lot of Renaissance festivals this time of year, and there's so many fall and autumn festivals. Think about all the pumpkin picking, the apple cider, all those things. There's so much of this time of year, and I think it fills us all with a sense of warmth and comfort. So looking at America as a whole, just as a nation, the main holidays this time of year are, of course, Halloween and Thanksgiving, one being at the end of October, one being at the end of November. And Halloween, we see this tradition of dressing up, we see this tradition of trick-or-treating, playing tricks, eating candy, eating sweets, but also tied into Halloween, I know we have this emphasis on jack-o'-lanterns, we have pumpkins involved there, you have the hot cider, putting on the jackets for the first time, decorating for this time of year. And then over here on Thanksgiving, we have an emphasis on eating, drinking, feasting, being with family, enjoying warm comfort foods. To me, as it stands now, Thanksgiving is one of the last bastions of culture and family and community that America has left, and even that is being slowly overtaken by Black Friday and Cyber Monday, where we focus on consumerism. But if we can hold on to the idea of coming together as a family, of eating and feasting, I think it's one of the last things we have. Halloween is already so commercial, and but at the same time, the ideas still stand. And what I want to focus on here is the idea of dressing up, the idea of spooky season, the idea of pumpkins, and the idea of families getting together to eating and drinking excessive amounts. Because again, this is something that we see in the pagan traditions that survive from the pre-Christian Scandinavian past, and within modern Wiccan traditions and modern global pagan celebrations as well. did also want to share what we've learned as a community in general now that we've done 2 fall gatherings. If you haven't already, I just released the fall gathering movie from this last gathering we had in Pennsylvania. It was a wonderful experience. And I feel like both gatherings, the one we had this year and the one we had last year, also fit these 2 sides of the spectrum. Last year we had a very spooky gathering. We had a lot of very interesting things happen, some, very intense spiritual moments. That veil was definitely thin. And so we definitely fit this ancestor veneration kind of thing where it was explosive, it was magical, it was awesome. And then this year, 2021 fall gathering, it was so much more relaxed. It was so much more, again, the emphasis on fellowship is something that I noticed, and which is why I put the Lord of the Rings music in the background of that video. And all the rituals, yes, they were still amazing, they were still magical, but they were much more just like calm, casual, collected. Maybe this is a maturity of our, community in general, but at the same time, I feel like we've had 2 sides of the spectrum as far as the just getting together with friends and family, celebrating with good food, good drink, hearty meals, and wonderful conversation, and then the thinning of the veil as well, the honoring of the ancestors, which of course we did in this gathering as well. So this time of year is magical. There's so much going around. There's the death energy of the leaves falling down. There's the cooling of the earth, the cooling of the land. There's something to this time of year that the world has noticed. It's something I have noticed, our community has noticed, pagans have noticed, Christians have noticed. So many people love and obsess over this time of year. And it really is my favorite time of year, even before I became a pagan. It was always the time of year I felt the most alive. And now that I'm following the old ways, I'm even more connected to the seasonal cycles, and this one is still by far my favorite. So where does this leave you as a modern practitioner of this faith, as someone getting into it for the first time, or someone that's been in it for a long time? Where does this leave you? First off, I hope this information has been helpful for you and enlightening to you to really just label out what this time of year means. One thing I was really debating on doing in this video was giving you actual dates for these holidays. And I decided not to, just because it seems like through the research I've done that there really isn't any given date because it's so regional. Wherever you live in the world, your autumn time of year, your end of summer, your beginning of winter is going to be different. And just like the past, they didn't even have a fall season. It was really just summer ends, winter begins, and the slight transitional window in between. There was no season set for that time. And depending on where you live, you might not get, even in the United States, a real fall, a real autumn, or even a real winter. Luckily enough, I enjoy living here in Kentucky, in the Midwest, and sort of the South, wherever Kentucky is considered. And we still get that transition of the seasons, the falling of leaves, the cooling of the air, and of course leading to winter. And I absolutely need that to feel connected to the earth. So really the date for you is whenever that seasonal transition happens, whenever the leaves start to change colors, or whenever the weather starts to calm down, or whenever the weather changes, I guess, if you're just like on the beach or in the middle of the desert. Now, personally, as a community, what we tend to focus on is the equinox. So we typically try to have our gatherings around the equinox, but even then it's not like a set thing. We maybe have it around a full moon or a new moon, so we try to focus on those 2 things as well. But again, those are going to be personal choices for your own personal practice and your group work that you end up doing with whatever community you decide to join. We have a fall gathering happening next week at the time of film, or 2 weeks from now, which is in the middle of October. We have 2 gatherings happening in the middle of October. So really anything between September, the end of August, all the way through November really could work for you before we transition over to the Yule months. Now, as far as how should you celebrate, again, I hope you've been able to see the list I've been building for you here. Either focus on the ancestor veneration, the thinning of the veil, the celebrating with your family, good food, good drink, celebration, warm, hearty meals, just be outside in a sweater around a campfire. Really, the way that normal society celebrates this time of year is how you should celebrate this time of year too. This is probably the only time of year you can get together with people from all around the world, people from all different cultures, and basically celebrate the same way. And being a pagan is going to be no different. This is probably the way to sneak your paganism into families that aren't necessarily pagan or kind of reluctant to be pagan. Really try to build up your family's Thanksgiving. Try to build up your family's Halloween to honor ancestors in some way. Really, if you sneak ancestor veneration into your family life, I don't think it's going to be seen as a bad thing. Around Thanksgiving, talk about your grandparents that have passed, talked about past family members you never knew, share stories of them. Decide to cook a meal for your family. If you're someone that doesn't normally cook, look up something to cook. It doesn't matter what it is, just make sure it's delicious and hearty, simple, something that can share a part of yourself with your family as well. There's so many different things you can do as a pagan this time of year to bring it to your every single day. Oh my gosh, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and I look forward to every autumn season going forward, just because I'm excited to bring that energy, excited to bring that life to everybody else all around the world, and also share a little bit of my personal beliefs as the veil thins, as ancestors come out to talk with us, and as we share parts of ourselves with the rest of the world. So I think that is all I have for this video. So I really thank you for joining me. I hope it's been able to inform you a little bit more of your personal practice, and able to inspire you to get out there and share your beliefs this time of year, because this is probably the easiest and best time of year to share your beliefs as a pagan, no matter what you believe, with the rest of the world, because we all love autumn, we all love fall, we all love sweaters, and you know, maybe not all love pumpkin spice, but we love this time of year. So thank you so much for joining me, and until the hall, Skål.